Martha, quick question. Is it Sahin or Shaheen? It's Sahin, correct? Shah?
Shaheen.
Oh, I spelled, okay. I was writing too fast in my notes. Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome.
Ah, Shaheen. Perfect. Uh, I'm just adding your bios to my script from my phone. So here we go. Come on. All right. It is in there. Okay. So let me get rid of all of this. That's why I'm glad we do this, because if not, you wouldn't have been introduced. So this is beautiful. Let me just put this in red. How's everybody feeling?
Good, exciting,
No?
excited.
No? Do you have water or tea? Might come in handy.
Good shout, actually.
All right. I'm going to turn my AC down. These lights are super hot. 1 second. Check 1, 2. Two. Okay, 5 minutes. Just so everybody's aware, because of time constraints, I'm going to stick to the main 2 questions and the leadership question. So it would be 3 questions each. Is that okay with everybody? Yes or no? If you need one of the backup questions to be answered, let me know and I'll just add it in there. No worries. No worries at all. Okay. Thank you. I'm just going through making my fonts larger so I can read them a little easier. Excuse me.
Good evening, one and all. We shall wait for another 5 minutes for rest of the members to join, and we sharps begin at 7:05. Thank you. Okay, good evening once again. Good evening to everyone. Welcome to the webinar hosted by Lincoln School of Management, powered by Lincoln University of Business and Management. Today, we are here to discuss on the connected enterprise of AI marketing and supply chains in a changing world. At LSM, since you all have attended earlier, we regularly organize industry-focused events and webinars that bring, working professionals together and experts to exchange ideas and share experiences. We are very pleased to host today's insightful discussion, and we look forward to hearing different perspectives on how AI, marketing, and supply chains are changing in the connected enterprise. Thank you once again for joining us and being patient for waiting us to let others join together. So let's get started. Before we begin, we have few webinar house rules set. Please do not enter the room without putting your full names. Those who have their full names present will be only given certificates within 7 to 15 working days. Please join the webinar on time. I hope those who are already on time have got the information, but those who are still late, we have no other thing to rather than to wait for him. There'll be a recorded session available for you, and we are even live streaming on Zoom, even on YouTube. So those who are not able to join the Zoom link by any chance, you please feel free to get connected to our YouTube channel, and you'll find us live there. You may step away for your prayer timings as per your times, whichever country, zone, or time you are in, at your convenience. You are only allowed to use the chat box to share your questions during the sessions. There will be no videos entertained, there'll be no thumbs up or any kind of emojis attended. Please write down your questions. Our support executives are available in the meeting. They will be answering your questions from the panelist one-on-ones during the Q&A section. If your query is not again addressed live, we will follow up with your via email. There'll be somebody who would be responding to your emails. Moving on to the next, we have today's agenda, where we'll be briefly introducing our speakers. Then the panelists will be presenting the micro presentations, followed by the questionnaire round and the lightning round, where individual perspectives on the topic will be shared. And with very warm welcome, I would like to introduce our host for the night, the moderator even for the panelist members, Mr. Cherry Matthews. He is an executive coach, he is a leadership strategist, and he is an international keynote speaker. He has been with us in our previous webinars, and we have had a wonderful time. I hope, Cherry, we are again going to experience a very insightful session with all the panel members tonight too. Over to you, Cherry.
Isa, thank you so much for that warm welcome and that nice introduction. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Lincoln University Business School of Management and Business. Thank you for being here tonight. Our topic tonight is going to be the connected enterprise, AI, marketing, and supply chains in a changing world. Now, what makes this conversation important is simply the speed at which technology is advancing. It's the way technology is changing the relationships among functions that businesses once managed separately. We all like our silos, but in this world, silos we have to modify the way we think about those silos. Marketing influences demand. Demand shapes forecasting. Forecasting affects supply and operations. The customer experience depends on whether the enterprise can deliver the promise that marketing creates. Each interaction generates data, and that data increasingly informs automated and AI-enabled decisions. This is no longer a conversation about isolated departments. It's a conversation about a connected system, a connected ecosystem. So tonight, we're going to look at this system from three perspectives: supply chain, and operations, digital transformation and AI, and the third will be marketing with a capital M. I think sometimes we think of marketing, we look at it through a small aperture. Today, I'm going to ask you to open that aperture a little wider. And if you're business school students, you should know this, but we're going to focus on what the big M of marketing really is today. And our goal is to move beyond the hype, understand what is changing, identify where real opportunities and risks are, and leave you with the practical ideas that you can use as a student, manager, or leader, not in the future, but tomorrow if you go to work or the next working day. So let's go. As you listen, I want you to keep one thing in mind, one question. Where does your function connect to someone else's decision? Because that intersection is where much of the value and much of the risk now exists. I will periodically stop through this and give you like a leadership so what. Why is that even important? What are we saying? Just a so what to connect what we're talking about. Because my role tonight is just to help connect the dots, not to become a fourth specialist presentation. You don't need me. Believe me, this panel is rich enough. And without further ado, I'm going to move right into it with our first panelist. Let me introduce you to who all the panelists are first. I'm going to start with Michael Stockdale. Michael joined RSG in 2021 following a 35-year career in global logistics and supply chain industry, including the founder and CEO of B2C Logistics Consulting, a specialist supply chain strategy and management consulting organization. Michael has extensive experience and expertise in the GCC environment, developing commercial strategies, high-performing teams, excellence in business capability, superior financial results, and world-class logistics facilities. Michael has worked extensively with large private government organizations across the GCC, such as Abu Dhabi Ports, Emirates Transport, Al Futtaim, Al Fusalia, and the Savola Group, with 3PLs such as Tibetan Britain and EDEXCEL, driving sustained growth for organizations and consistently delivering better than market financial results. Holding a master's degree from the University of Cumbria and currently completing a PhD in sustainable quality supply chain management. Michael is also experienced faculty at the member of several UK universities and a regular speaker at industry conferences. The second speaker is going to be Marcin Pikachuk. He is a results-driven business management and technology leader with over 17 years of international experience delivering the digital transformation, innovation, and operational excellence across diverse industries and multicultural environments. He specializes in developing technologies that drive business growth and enhance customer experiences, and also to create sustainable organizational value. Throughout his career, he has worked across the UK, Poland, Kuwait, and the UAE, leading teams, managing transformation initiatives, and driving innovation in global markets. He has also gained valuable exposure through business engagements across KSA, Qatar, Russia, and Turkey, developing a strong understanding of diverse cultures, markets, and operating models. His experience includes digital transformation, AI optimization, omni-channel strategy, e-commerce, customer experience, and technology leadership. He holds a degree in business and marketing from Buckinghamshire New University and a postgraduate degree in project management from Warsaw School of Economics and a mini MBA from ESA Business School in Beirut. And our third panelist is Marta Valus Shahin. Marta is an accomplished marketing leader and educator with more than 15 years of experience across brand strategy, consumer behavior, innovation, and business growth. She has held senior brand leadership roles in international markets, including extensive experience at Procter & Gamble within the shave care accessories across shave care category across Asia Pacific, the Middle East, and Africa. Most recently, she has served as the head of marketing at Stada, where she has led strategy across consumer health and specialty pharmaceutical portfolios, balancing commercial growth with regulatory and ethical responsibility. Alongside her corporate career, Marta is also an adjunct professor at Holt International Business School, where she teaches marketing, digital marketing, brand challenge, business challenge, new product development, neuromarketing, and marketing strategy in the digital age. With degrees in international relations and an MBA also from Holt, she combines strategic thinking, behavioral science, creativity, and practical business leadership to explore how marketing shapes consumer decisions, builds meaningful brands, and creates sustainable organizational value. Ladies and gentlemen, those are your panelists today. And if you can tell from those bios, This isn't just going to be academic. This is going to be real world. It's going to touch you in the mind, but these are things that you can use, actionable steps and insights and awareness that you can use at your next working day, like I said earlier. So for our first presentation, we're going to spend a few minutes learning from Michael Stockdale a few things. Michael, how are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks, Chetty. Yeah.
Wonderful. So let us begin with the enterprise, because the enterprise becomes physical. Give us that executive view of how supply chain is moving from visibility toward intelligence, and please ground us in, one real-world operational example, if you can.
Very good. Thanks, Chetty. And a warm welcome to everyone on the webinar tonight. I've got to start by saying, again, thanks for that quite lengthy introduction there, Chetty. Speaking about 35 years, I'm showing my age now because I'm actually been in business for 40 years now, 41 years to be exact. And I've got to tell you, never have I seen in those 41 years a pace of change in the business environment like we're seeing today. And I think it's the new norm, or if anything, I think it's accelerating. That change is accelerating. And that introduces a whole raft of strategic and competitive and operational problems. And we often talk about the problem and the solution to it in business. And I know this is going to sound quite cliched, but genuinely, in my experience now, I've found that the problems really are the business opportunities. And that's partly because the problems, as they emerge, that we face, are very rarely unique to one organization. They tend to exist across an entire industry or even beyond that. And fundamentally, this is what businesses do, right? They identify problems, they develop solutions, and hopefully they find a way of monetizing them, of course. So now, before I jump straight into kind of the discussion around AI-enabled supply chains, I want to put some context around where supply chains have come from and where we are now and where I think we're heading. So if we could pop over to the next slide there, please. And I promise you guys, I've only got 2 slides here, so you're going to have to listen a whole lot more than looking, unfortunately, or fortunately. Now, historically, supply chain optimization, and I'm talking going back to the 80s and the 90s, of course, when we were using logbooks and green screen computers. But back then, supply chains were relatively straightforward, at least conceptually, right? We tended to have to balance, 3 elements, which was cost and inventory and customer service. But today, that decision environment, it's massively more complicated. We're increasingly have to balance that cost along with working capital and service, which is now expanded into customer experience, along with resilience and risk and sustainability and so on. And all of those new variables and the old ones, they continue to interact with each other. So the management challenge here, it's becoming significantly more complex. And at the same time, of course, supply chains themselves have been going through a transformation that's directly linked to technological progression as well. So I guess, supply chains have really been moving from a historically transaction-based systems into predictive enterprises. And this is the important point tonight, I think. Supply chains now harvest signals from across, all of their operations and the marketplace. They need to interpret them at big scale now because most supply chains are global now. They need to anticipate what happens next and then convert that prediction into kind of operating and strategic advantage. Now, well, that's the ideal, isn't it? That's the ambition. And we're kind of on our way there at the moment, but we're not there yet. Now, the pathway, and now I'll refer to the slide here, the pathway I've illustrated here at the top of the slide. Now, it started with digitalization. As I said earlier, back in the 1980s, guys, there was not much digitalization. It was very manual. So as we've progressively digitalized much of our information, it's given us a lot more information that's readily accessible that we can start using. And then next came the integration of all of that information. So integration allowed the information to move between systems and between functions and silos and between operators. And that accumulated over time into what we call big data now. So, and the big data, that's the prerequisite for predictive AI, isn't it? But it must still be harvested, of course. The data needs to be properly structured, it needs to be combined, and it needs to be interpreted correctly. And that's not easy. So supply chains must be physically instrumented using all different types of sensors, of course, through the entire network, upstream and all the way downstream. And then, of course, all of those sensors need to be connected somehow. So that moves us into now the prediction part. And only now are we actually able to seriously consider truly autonomous adaptive operations. And what I mean by that is being able to kind of anticipate and deploy inventory, resources, assets, people, these types of things, before the actual demand kicks in, before the actual demand. And that's the step that industry is starting to take at the moment. And this was why I described this next stage more so as the predictive enterprise. Now bear in mind that we often use the term predictive analytics. And to me, predictive analytics is not the same as a predictive enterprise, because what that means that we're passing through the emerging stages of predictive analytics. But to me, that's a single point now. And we're moving into the steps of, and you'll see the cycle down there on the slide, the steps of predict, and then importantly, decide. And when I say decide, making an informed decision, and importantly, making it very, very quickly, and then acting, and then learning on that, and then feeding it back, and having kind of a closed loop cycle there. Now, before I move on to the next part, we must always talk about risk as well nowadays. Organizations are very, very sensitive to risk. It's one of those make or break elements of business. Now, when it comes to risk, let's understand, demand constantly changes. Customers and their preferences constantly change, and even upstream supply changes. So any of these predictions that I'm talking about here, they're not 100% sure, right? Predictions are forecasts. No one can tell the future, really. So predictions are never 100%. So the value, though, of the prediction shouldn't be looked at as certainty, right? Prediction doesn't give you certainty, but it does give you informed decision time. And that informed decision time gives you that speed of action, and the speed of action and the speed of being able to adapt. That's the competitive advantage that we're looking at nowadays. Now, let's move to the next slide, if we can, please. Now, from an organizational perspective, the pursuit of AI itself is, of course, for competitive advantage. Why else would we do it? Marketplaces, and in particular, logistics and supply chains and trading and so on, are all becoming extraordinarily competitive, like it's never been before. And ultimately, that competitive advantage often comes from the ability to see and to adapt and to pivot and to then act upon that. So here I see the progression as starting with connectedness of organizations and silos and data itself, to data generating, to predictive, and then to adaptive, as I've said before. Now, we go through each of these one at a time. Connectedness itself is not new. Organizations have been integrating systems for many, many decades. But what has changed here is what becomes possible once a connected enterprise starts generating these enormous quantities of really usable data. And this is where the relationship between functions starts becoming quite interesting, right? For example, marketing, that can both detect and also influence and even shape demand. If marketing identifies a change in a customer behavior, or actively shapes or reshapes new demand from that customer, that information has extensive operational consequences, of course. It potentially changes all of the other kind of related and adjacent activities, such as forecasting and inventory, sourcing, capacity, and so on. Now, of course, none of this happens without a technology layer. So operations increasingly needs instrumentation to start collecting all of this data. So we need sensors and IoT and integrated systems, and of course, that processing power that will actually allow us to capture what's happening out there in the real world, in the physical world, in real time, of course, and then turn that into data that is actually usable and employable. Now, for me, folks, as a practitioner here, though one remaining very important question that always appears, right? Because you've always got, in my experience in business, there's always an accountant looking over your shoulder, right? So the big question here too is the economics of the technology itself. And we often traditionally ask, what's the ROI, what's the return on investment of making this investment in this technology? But I must say, folks, increasingly, I think we also have to ask, what's the cost of not developing this technology and this capability in the organization? Now, for example, and I've listed some of the competitive advantages there. Now, imagine if competitors can forecast better than you, if they can deploy inventory earlier, if they can carry less working capital, if they can use their assets more effectively and respond faster to customers and identify risk sooner. The cost of investing, let me rephrase that. The cost of not investing is no longer simply an IT cost or an IT saving. It becomes a competitive cost that may indeed threaten the very viability and the future of the organization as it is. So I don't think having AI itself will ultimately be a competitive advantage, and certainly not a sustainable competitive advantage, because everyone will have access to AI, everyone. So the advantage that we seek from it is increasingly going to come from how effectively the organization learns and then responds to that, and then can deploy its decisions. And the competitive advantage, it's going to belong to those organizations that can do that faster, that can do it more intelligently, and that can do it more consistently than their competitors. Now, I hope that gives you a very quick and very brief synopsis of the perspective of supply chain and operations. Chetty, I tried to be as quick as I could on that so we can get into the real meat and potatoes here. So I'll hand you folks back to Chetty now. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Chetty.
Thank you, Michael. That was actually a really good way to frame the problem set, the situation, and where we are, so we know where we are at this point. But now we're going to dive a little deeper, because you mentioned a few things in there, and one of them was the effective use of AI. So since we talked about the effective use in AI and its impact on risk mitigation, but also on ROI, as in return on investment or return on not investing, I think it was good to see the other side of that coin. So because you've illustrated those things, we're going to go to an expert in this space. And Marcin, it's now your turn. So Marcin, Michael has established the operational reality for us. Take us into the technology layer and help us to separate AI with a purpose from AI as a fashion or a fad, and show us what practical implementation actually looks like in the real world.
Thanks, Chetty. Thanks for the introduction. And I absolutely love how Michael finished his slides, because this gives me a smooth start. I actually made some notes from what Michael mentioned about return on investment of technology, return on investment from not investing into technology, and also comment which Michael made about AI is not competitive advantage. AI itself doesn't have to be competitive advantage. And this is very important, because this is exactly what I'm going to talk about in terms of difference between implementation of AI for the sake of AI, for the sake of showing off and pleasing board of members, senior managers, and shining on LinkedIn, to actually using AI to tackle challenge problem and building a governance and frame around how do you measure the impact of AI. So, can we go to next slide, please? Yeah, exactly. So the key thing here to mention before we talk about the particular cases, my cases of AI implementation, is that 95% of enterprise AI application fails. This is a massive number. AI itself is expensive. AI can bring lots of challenges to the business and problems to the business. So why so many organizations fail in implementing AI? Number one, there's no business needs. So many organizations don't start with the business problem, with the business challenge. They apply AI because they want AI. Secondly, there's no business case. So do we actually know what we want to achieve? Do we know what's the definition of success? Do we know what's going to be success of the project? There's no ownership. So who owns it? Is it a business? Is it AI? Sorry, is it a business? Is it IT? There's no ownership and governance for AI application. So there's a project, there is a launch, there's kickoff, but who's in charge of measuring the data? Who's in charge of making sure that there's no incorrect results? Who is learning and readapting the models? This is very important to make sure there's clear ownership and governance around it. And lastly, poor data. So we like to say garbage in, garbage out. AI, going back to mathematics, it's an algorithm. It uses data. If the data is poor, the poor results, simple as it is. So again, data is a key foundation of AI. Data needs to be clean. Data needs to be ideally structured, but unstructured data also will work for AI, but you need to have a good data in order to start your AI journey. Okay, so I'm going to quickly talk about two cases of AI which I have applied for my business, for Grandiose Supermarket. One of them is a conversational AI. This is a business case where the challenge was to increase average transaction value, increase conversion, and also make a shopping experience more fun. So make it more experiential when it comes to retail. So what I've done, we built an engine which recommends specific dishes or meals based on the requirements, and also gives you products based on recipes, and it gives you recipes for dishes you want to make. So you can interact in the way, I want to cook lasagna, and we tell you, or the AI tells you how to make lasagna, gives you the product, one click of the button, all products added to the basket, you convert. So very simple application of AI, very significant results. Again, 20% increase on conversion, 3% increase on average transaction value, and the scale was quite low. Adoption was only 1.65%. There was not much marketing. It was purely organical usage of the solution without much marketing.
Love that.
The next case, so this is slightly different usage of AI. So this is actually using AI to build software. So what we've done, again, starting with the business challenge, in supermarkets, in omni-channel environments for online business, we saw a challenge when it comes to fulfillment of food which requires preparation. So bakery, fishery, food items such as shawarma sandwiches, pizza, etc., etc. There was no communication between e-commerce platform and store from which product is being fulfilled, which was causing lots of problems. It was not allowing to scale the solution, was creating delays, lack of prioritization, slow fulfillment, etc., etc. So obviously, based on this problem, the first action is to understand how much does it cost to build a solution to tackle this problem. And through the review of technology, looking at the industry and the development agencies on the market and also offshore, such solution would cost us around $30,000 to build. close to 1,000 hours of development, 8 weeks to deploy solution. So we took a step back, me and my team, we had a look at AI solutions, and actually we managed to build a code, fully built solution using AI. And this solution is implemented as a pilot. It's working effectively, it's serving the purpose, and we managed to do that at cost of $10 within 10 hours of development, and we took it to the market within 1 day. So massive shortcut when it comes to markets, and obviously massive cost optimization. And again, AI is extremely good when it comes to cost optimization and cost avoidance. And especially these days in the retail industry, it's very important to be able to be faster, cheaper, and more agile. Okay, so just to wrap it up, to make sure that I leave everyone with a couple of points, how to apply sustainable AI, AI with purpose, rather than AI for the sake of fashion. So start with the problem, not the tool, not technology. Define success and return on investment upfront. Give it real ownership, create governance around it. Make sure you have data. Data quality is the foundation of AI. And lastly, start small, create small business case, create small success, learn, scale, fail, and do that all over again. It's not about making big and flashy. It's about making small successes, scaling up, and bringing the return on investment every step along the way. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Martin, thank you so much for that. That was phenomenal. What blew my mind is that I didn't know that 95% of implementation fails. That is, not only is that significant, that should be, everyone should be jumping in the back of their seat right now thinking about that. In other words, most of the time that we implement AI, it's not going to work. And in one use case, you showed a 3,000% reduction in price from 30,000. I believe you said $30,000 to $10 is
Correct.
mind-boggling. I mean, every CXO should be falling out of their chair knowing that this can save them that much money and time to make a decision. And as you were talking about earlier, Michael, you were mentioning the speed of decisions, the speed of action. Well, you just accelerated that speed, but also you reduced that return on investment because you invested so little but got so much out of it. If that's not AI in a nutshell, when it's used effectively as part of that 5%, I don't know what is. So I'm super excited about that. And I like how you mentioned the marketing component to see how it's seen from that perspective as well. And to dig further into that, Marta, it is your turn. And so now, Marta, we've heard how the enterprise operates and how technology can augment it. Bring us to the customer at this point. What changes when insight, engagement, and personalization become increasingly intelligent, while trust and human judgment still matter?
Hi, Chetty. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. And tonight, I want to invite you to reflect on a sentence that I hear very often. AI will revolutionize marketing. And I fully agree with what Marcin and Michael said before. AI alone absolutely will not revolutionize marketing. It's what you will do with AI and what strategic decisions, human decisions you will do, can make big changes in marketing. But for me, marketing and AI in marketing is still an evolution rather than revolution. And I'll tell you why. Because the biggest job for me as a marketeer is to understand the consumer journey and to understand to where the consumer makes the decisions. And yes, the consumer journey does become more intelligent, but it still remains very human. Before I show you a couple of things of how human our decisions still are, I would like to ask you a question, which is on the next slide. Why do you think people actually adopt products? You can write it on the chat or you can think into yourself. Do you think that we are making decisions with our rational logic and fully identify all the benefits that product or service will give us, or we actually are driven by behavioral reality, emotions, trend, social pressure. Before I give you answer to this question, I would love you to think about this very question, and I love that I see some engagement on the group and answering the questions. I won't give you the answer yet, but yes, keep going. Good answers seeing on the chat. Next slide, please. So AI changed the way consumers make their decisions. That's for sure. It's a little bit more complicated than before. Those who studied marketing all remember the famous marketing funnel. The journey was simpler. The journey was linear. People became aware about the product, then they considered the product, finally they purchased the product. If they purchased it more than once, fantastic, they became loyal consumers. If they became loyal consumers and actively marketed this product, they became our advocates. Amazing. Well, scrap this news because now our consumer journey is much more complicated. It's something what we call a messy middle. With the abundance of information we are having at the tip of our finger and continuous new players and personalized information being given to us, we are stuck in a messy middle. And I want to see a raise of hands, and I'm sure my dear colleagues also and guest speakers will think about this. How many times you already thought, I'm about to make a decision, and a new proposal appeared in front of your eyes, and you back to square one, and you are in a constant loop between exploration and evaluation. And who will make a decision when to get out of this loop and actually make a decision is a human. So we as human marketeers need to help identify the triggers to the consumer when to get out of the messy middle and where to make the final decision. So you absolutely spot on correct. If you think that the consumers are making decision by evaluating the features logically, comparing the alternatives rationally, choosing the objectively best option, you are unfortunately mistaken. Because the truth is that majority of us, of course, it depends on the product, it depends on the size of the decisions we need to make. Majority of our decisions are adopted emotionally, are context driven, are socially influenced, are habit based. And in order to create an effective and efficient marketing campaign, you have to combine what AI gives you, the abundance of information personalization, but the human decision when to get out of the loop and when to make the final decision. So of course, AI will speed a certain process. AI will give you access to more information, but there's a difference. For the long time when our marketing funnel was very linear, we were focusing on only one type of benefits. I don't know if you can guess. I will show it to you in a second slide. The benefits were only functional. We were talking about the price, the product, the features of this product. Guess what? Those benefits, the functional benefits, are talking to 5% of our decision-making brain. Because the fact is that majority of our marketing decisions are done with system one. 95% on average is driven by instinct and driven by emotion. So how can we only talk to the consumer, giving him or her the functional benefits? It will not work. We as human marketeers have to combine functional benefit with emotional benefit and memory trigger, because this is what will create a memorable, high equity brand that will stay with the consumer for a long time. So of course, use the AI information and optimization to enhance the functional benefit, but apply human judgment to add onto it the emotional benefit and the memory trigger. Before I close with a couple of pointers, I wanted to finish with a story. I worked with a lot of young, energetic, ambitious people who joined my team, and We are on to conquer the world. And one of my first questions to the newcomers is, how do you see the brand you're going to be working on? What are the strategic thinking? What do you think that we should change? And I don't know if you can guess what is the most common sentence I receive from my young comers. Can somebody guess? Maybe somebody can write on the chat. I know we don't have enough time, but maybe what's on the screen will help you. The biggest amount of times I receive a sentence saying, Marta, we need to think outside of the box. We have to be creative. We have to be amazing. We have to do something that nobody else does. I love when I hear this sentence because my answer is very simple. Take me with you. Let's go outside of the box and let's jump and explore this creative area. But before that, you need to pass my test. Tell me what's in the box. What are the marketing fundamentals that we need to know? What is the strategic marketing thinking for us in order to know in which direction we're going? Only when you passed my test and you will know, not my test, you passed this test and you will know what is in the box, what are the fundamentals, we can jump out of it and think about letter W, Z, and Y after we know what's A, B, and C. We need to know what are the goals and objectives of our campaign. And it's easier said than done. Marketing objective is not only to accelerate sales or to increase awareness. We need to know exactly where are we going. We need to know what our target audience is. But it's not anymore about the segment of gender and age and geographical location. It's about the functional benefits, the emotional benefits, and the memory triggers. We really need to know whom are we talking to. We need to know what is our value proposition. Why are we better than competitors and why you will choose me over another player? And lastly, but definitely not least, actually the most important thing, how will you measure your success and how will you know when to pivot your marketing strategy? So let's think about interactive, AI, personalized, amazing, creative things outside of the box once we know that our fundamentals are in place and once we know when to use AI and when to use our human judgment. So I would like to leave you with also a couple of pointers, maybe food for thought, maybe something you can implement, because the future marketeer is a translator of the AI-supported data into a robust marketing strategy. So what I would like to leave you with are simple 3 points. Always map the consumer journey. Know how your consumer behaves and map it in such way to know which parts of the journey will be automated, which part of the journey will be augmented, and which part of the journey will be kept human. AI will give you an abundance of time, which is great. Invest this time in creating value. Understand your consumer deeper. Create stronger ideas and improve the positioning of your products or services. And lastly, whenever you create a marketing strategy, it needs to answer 4 questions. What does the consumer need? Do you actually know? What value do you bring? And does this value answer the need of your consumer? How does the technology enable it? And lastly, how does this contribute to the business? That's all from my side. Thank you, Chadi. Thank you, team.
Thank you so much, Marta. I'm actually writing down notes as you go. So let me just finish this one note. How does it contribute to the business? I'm saying it out loud on purpose because it's extremely important for everything we do. All these things are nice and shiny object syndrome is a beautiful thing, but we have to always come back to the common denominator of how does this affect the business and the mission and purpose and goals of that business. If you're not answering that question, you failed before you started. So thank you so much for bringing this together. I love those 3 points, those 3 takeaways. And I'm going to try and synthesize what's been said so far. And I'm going to try and do it in a macro sense. We've heard from Michael describing the physical flow of products, services, and operational decisions. But Marcin described the digital capability that can improve from those decisions. And Marta was describing the customer insight and promise that create demand in the first place. But also another thing that you added, Marta, that I need to add is the way that you mentioned we think in system 1 thinking, but a lot of times our processes are geared towards system 2 thinking. And just adding the humanness back can save us a lot of time. Also, those three questions you had, which would have been using AI to buy back, pardon me, mapping consumer journey, one, using AI to buy back time, and answering those four questions. You know, what does the consumer need? What value do you provide? How does this tech enable that? And does it meet the business goal? Remember this, because if you ask those questions in a room, you just elevated yourself as a thought leader in that room. Bet me on that. I just think if you answer those questions, you've elevated the consciousness in that room. But moving on, we're going to go into the second round. Now we're going to get a little more inquisitive. I'm going to be a little more interrogative now because I have questions. And I have quite a few questions for you. And I'm going to start with Michael first. So Michael, as we go into the second round of this, I wanted to just go over what we're going to do. Our panelists have established the state of their discipline. So right now we're going to have more of a conversation. And I want to find out what's fundamentally changed. Where is the practical value and what leaders should understand right now? So my first question for you, Michael, if you're ready, is going to be, supply chains were once largely invisible to customers until something went wrong. But today, they affect customer experience, as you mentioned, brand reputation, sustainability, competitive strategy. And from your executive perspective, what has fundamentally changed about the role of supply chain?
Thanks for that question, Shadi. And that's a very, very good question. So well done. Except I'll correct one thing, because you said until something went wrong. And I'd be careful to express it like that. I'd say until there was a realization that there's more and we can get more out of supply chains, there's opportunities there. Now, if we kind of go back again, there was a time before we even used the term supply chain. You know, when I first started in business, it was called trucks and warehouse, and supply chain was an expense line in any organization. But gradually over time, it's been recognized as kind of the holder of the largest company asset and the largest company risk in many, many organizations. And I'm talking about the inventory. It's typically, most organizations have got more dough, more funds tied up in their inventory than in anything else, particularly if they're leasing buildings and factories and such. And certainly the nature of inventory has the greatest amount of risk attached to it as well. So I think there's been change around that it's been the realization that, hey, this is a problem, but therefore it's an opportunity. And I think, you know, supply chain's being recognized as the new competitive advantage nowadays. We keep talking about time here and about speed. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits indirectly that AI is going to give us. It's going to give us the benefit of time and speed. Supply chains also become a much, much more strategic function as well. And indeed, we see chief supply chain officers now represented on the boards at the most senior level of the largest companies in the world. And I think that's because, you know, there's got to be representation around the strategic functionality of supply chain in supporting the organization's overall competitive strategy. And often, as I say, that comes down to key elements such as speed, of course, but also, you know, fulfillment levels and around cost and loss control as well.
Wow. Thank you. So my second question is going to go in a little different direction, but when you look at AI, advanced analytics, Internet of Things, IoT, and the greater end-to-end visibility, where were you seeing the greatest practical opportunity for organizations to move from reactive supply chain management towards predictive decision-making?
Yeah, again, thanks, Jenny. Good question. I think when it comes to what's the greatest opportunities, I'm just kind of struggling with this concept because, you know, Marcin brought up a good point about, you know, the 95% of implementations that fail, because I think too many organizations like to go for the kind of the glamorous, really cool AI implementations and opportunities because they look good. But the reality, I think, is much, much more kind of utility and functional. And to me, it's around the proactive deployment of inventory. I keep coming back to this issue around the inventory itself. Inventory is really the supply chain. It's not really trucks and warehouses and these types of things. And I must say, look, The new consumer, and I'm sure Marta can expand upon this more than me, but the new consumer in the modern world now, they value convenience much, much more over price. No one's looking for the cheapest deal. We all think we are, but people will click the button on convenience before they click the button on what is the most inexpensive. Because most of us as consumers, we're time poor. We're looking for options. We expect options and we expect convenience, but we also expect speed, and we're willing to pay for it. I think that's a very, very common theme there. And of course, besides the customers, organizations themselves, they want high fulfillment and they want low inventory levels, and they're kind of at opposite ends of a spectrum often. So I believe that's where AI can kick in to do the most good. Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Now, you know me, I'm always going to ask a leadership question. So if you're thinking about becoming a leader, looking to promote, looking to elevate, looking to climb, or looking for strategies, Michael, my last question for you is leadership based. So imagine I'm starting a new role tomorrow and I want to become a leader in this connected AI enabled enterprise. What is one thing you would tell me to start developing right now?
Yeah, thanks, Chetty. I'm glad that you're bringing up the issue of leadership, because it's not discussed often enough. We tend to think that technology is going to resolve all of the issues of the world, but in an organization, I think leadership is probably the most key element of any organization.
I agree.
What would I kind of recommend here? I would suggest anyone to develop the ability to understand the business horizontally, right? Not just functionally in individual silos. Someone needs to have a much, much broader perspective to be successful. And certainly in my experience, as I've kind of become more senior in the organizations I've been with, the quality of decisions very, very much depend, increasing all the time, on understanding the second and the third order consequences across the enterprise, right? You need to understand what's the ripple effect of your decisions in any organization. So I would build ability to look at across functions and to understand the interdependencies and the interconnections between those decisions, and make decisions specifically for the enterprise rather than trying to look at optimizing my own kind of function in its own silo.
Wow. I love that. I actually had a different so what that I was going in a different direction, but I'm going to pivot now and change it to this, because what you said integrates so many things. And my takeaway, my so what for what you're saying right now is, as a leader, develop that business horizontally. Understanding the business horizontally is essential, because many of us are trained to be I's. I know my function, I know what I do, I know my discipline, and that's all I care about. However, what you just said was maybe we should become T's, and maybe we become an expert in what we do, but we should be extremely aware of all the other functions and how they interact, coincide, impact, affect other silos, because it can change your decision-making process and help you to see things in a more panoramic view. And I think that is a great position for a leader. And it's actually what a general manager does. The term may not sound glamorous, but it's what a general manager has to do and kind of synthesize all the moving parts and make them work together. So Michael, thank you so much for that. And now I'm going to go out of order to throw people off a little bit. Marta, you're next. You have my next question. I know you thought it was going to be you, Martin, but I switched it around. Got to keep people awake.
Bring it. I'm ready.
All right, game on. So my first question for you, Marta. Marketing now has access to extraordinary amounts of consumer data and increasingly powerful AI tools. You know this. But what fundamentally changed about how organizations understand and engage with consumers?
It changed everything. It's a total revolution. No, I'm joking. Of course not. As mentioned before, it is an evolution of how we understand the consumer. But I would like to point three main changes. Number one is the depth of understanding the consumer. We know now about our consumer much more. And it's, again, up to us how we use this knowledge. 20 years ago, when we marketeers were identifying our target audience, it was basically three definitions: the gender, the age, and maybe geographical location. Now we know how the consumers behave, what do they consume in terms of media, what and where and how they spend their money, what are their shopping habits, what are their online habits, and we can adjust our marketing campaigns accordingly to make them more effective and more efficient. So number one, we know about our consumer and we can target our audience much, much more accurate and much deeper. The second thing, I actually will start with question to you, Chedi. Imagine 20, 25 years ago, how did you learn about the new product? Where did you learn about new news?
One of two, you said 25 years ago. So I'm going to say 25 years ago, it would have probably been TV and the news. 20 years ago would have been Excite. It would have been Alta Vista. It would have been Ox Jeeves. It would have been Yahoo. Not even Google at that point.
100%. You see, you're already showing me the evolution. But the matter of fact is that 2 decades ago, we were launching a product and maybe 6 months ago, 6 months later, leveraging the product. And this is where the consumers heard about us, right? Now the journey and the communication is continuous. You saw something on TV, but 95% of consumers are multitasking, so most probably you are on your phone. The same message is repeated on your YouTube channel and on your socials. We also synchronize your search so we can appear in the top 3 categories. And once you search something, we automatically can target you with the messages of discounts, learn more, subscribe, and so on and so forth. So the journey from maybe once or twice a year, the contact we have with the consumer now changed dramatically to have this ongoing continuous journey. Last but not least is very important for me, and it's very much connected to Michael said at the very beginning. Marketeers are not only analyzing the data to make a current campaign. They are responsible or should be responsible to predict the future trends, to predict what will the consumer do next, and then translate it into the innovation, the changes to internal teams, supply chain among them. What will happen in the future? What kind of product, sizes, frequencies, quantities will be trending in the future? And as much as I can see that marketeers are thriving in creating strategic current campaigns, there's a lot of job to be done to work on predicting the future, accurate future, and translated it to your internal teams.
I love that. I love how you use just how you made information, the speed of information changes our decision-making process and the timeliness of them. Because you're right, what a cycle that was 6 months to a year is now 6 hours, 6 days. I mean, it's super fast now. And the information, the amount of touches we get on multimedia platforms is mind-boggling. And we couldn't even conceive that 2 decades ago. But I'm going into my second question because I'm going to bring this back to the human element. And as personalization becomes increasingly automated, where does the line stand between using technologies to understand consumers better and allowing technology to weaken authenticity, creativity, or trust, those deeply human characteristics?
Very important question. And again, I'm sorry, I'll ask you a question. What do
Pressure.
you think, Chedi? You are not off my hook. What do you think, Chedi, is the biggest role of a marketeer?
Years ago, I think I would have said to expand awareness of a brand is what I would have said. I get the
Well,
feeling that's
then
going to change. So
then you
that's
are
what I would
on
have
top
said.
of the funnel. You are on top of the funnel, and there's a lot of work to be done. But of course, there are plenty of things to be done. But one of the most important things is that marketeers are custodians of the trust, of the consumer trust. And we need to make sure that whatever the brand does, whatever and however the brand is represented, it does not jeopardize the consumer trust that they have for our brand. Why? Because with high trust comes high brand equity and brand longevity. Because with high trust comes repeated orders, repeated purchase, loyalty, and advocacy. So here comes one and only one test. How personalization helps building the trust and where personalization can destroy this trust. And I'm sure that all of you have been in the situation that personalization became intrusive and you started to be worried about how much does the brand know about me and how will this brand use it against me. So again, I'm coming back to the simple first step of my cheat sheet. Whatever you do with your marketing campaign and consumer journey, judge what to automate, what to augment, and what to remain human. And the first kind of judgment should be, will the consumers lose trust or maintain or increase trust in my brand? Because unfortunately, less and less brands are swimming in blue oceans, that I'm the only player, and if I lose trust of my consumers will forgive me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like this anymore. Majority of brands are swimming in a very red oceans with plenty of competitors. Once we lose trust of our consumers, they would say, thank you for your service, I'll go to another brand. So we as marketeers are custodians of how we behave, how we personalize, among other things, in order not to lose trust.
Wow, that is such a paradigm shift for me, but it adds weight and responsibility to the role and the whole profession of marketing. Because being a custodian of consumer trust, like you said, once it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't come back. And if it comes back, it takes a lot of energy and effort to earn that
and
trust.
Money and time. I love
Yes,
that you said energy and effort, but we are here business people, and money and time, and this is what matters.
Exactly. So this leads me into my leadership question, which is going to be, where do you see the greatest leadership failure today? Lack of technical understanding, weak cross-functional collaboration, I to T leadership, as we're talking about, poor change management, or an inability to translate data into decisions?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, but if I had to choose, I would choose two. One of them is definitely the data overload and analysis paralysis. And we are kind of surrounding ourselves, and we ourselves as marketeers, as leaders, as managers, we are in the messy middle. We don't know where to get out of the data and analysis of such and when to make a decision. And guess what? Decision, when it comes to consumer behavior, has a lot of data analysis, but also a little bit of a gut feel. And this is one again a proof that the human strategy needs to be put in place. When are we stopping analyzing the abundance of data that we have, and when we are going into execution and implementation? But there's a trick. If you know your box, you will know where to stop analyzing. If you know exactly what is the objective of your campaign, whom are you talking to, what is your value proposition, and what are the metrics that you are chasing, trust me, you will know exactly how to prioritize, how to segregate your data. But I've seen more often than not that we are stuck in the analysis paralysis and no good strategy, decisive, actionable steps are coming out of it. The second thing for me is, again, coming to what we spoke already. Marcin talked about it, Michael talked about it, the cross-functional collaboration. I love how we marketeers know how to speak to the consumer, but we don't know how to speak to finance department, sales department, and supply chain department. We work in silos. We are not connecting. I take full responsibility and ownership, and I think marketeers should do that, of communicating what is now and what comes next and how it will impact our sales, our finance picture, and our supply chain.
Wonderful. I love that. And for a so what, it's funny because I've been taking notes as we speak and I keep changing them as you speak more. But I'm going to go over this. You mentioned the messy middle a few times, and I call it the grays. I say leadership navigates the gray areas. If we didn't have gray areas, any idiot could do any kind of job. Just push this button or push that button. However, most things exist in the gray, and that's where leadership is needed. And if you want to go from analysis to execution, you need leadership and insight. And the insight comes from, as you put it, knowing what's inside the box, knowing the science of your profession so you can apply the art of your profession. And then that cross-functional collaboration, understanding how what you do impacts and affects everything else in the enterprise. So that was my takeaway from what you said. And I'm going to move on to last, but definitely not least. Marcin, are you ready for me?
I am. Bring it on.
Wonderful. So now we're going to go into this. Organizations are under enormous pressure to do something with AI. How should leaders distinguish between legitimate business applications in technology, being deployed, or simply just being there to be fashionable? What do we do?
It's a very good question, and this is a great. The answer is going to be a great recap of my previous presentation, which I'd like to repeat all over again, to make sure that we all use AI, as you mentioned, as a business solution. You mentioned business application. Business means it brings profit to the organization. We all work for the businesses. We all supposed to bring profits or cost optimization, which is profit also, to the owners and chairmen of the organization, right?
Agreed.
So
yes,
it needs to bring money. And how to make sure that it brings money? You need to start with a problem, as I mentioned before. So is there a valuable problem? Are you trying to fix a problem? Are you trying to resolve some challenge in organization? Number two, is AI the best way to do that? It doesn't have to be. It's not always, AI is not always the best solution. And funny enough, organizations that are mature in AI, they'll be the first companies, first organization to say AI is not the right solution for this problem. You need to be very open and bold to say AI is not necessarily a solution for everything, and it's not. So it's very important to understand what problem are you trying to fix. What kind of data do you have? Do you have structured data, unstructured data? Maybe it's better to implement some kind of automation, some kind of rule-based solution. Again, AI can be very expensive, and it's not always the solution. How do we measure success? What I mentioned before. So did we have smart objectives before we decided to go ahead with AI? How do we measure those objectives? When do we measure those objectives? I mean, again, I'm talking to business representatives and business students. So obviously, everyone knows what SMART objective stands for, right? So SMART objectives are critical. And again, we need to also answer the question, what happens if the application implementations goes wrong? Who's in charge of making sure it's being resolved? Who's in charge to make sure there's a rollback plan? Who's in charge to make sure that it doesn't impact business more? So again, how to differentiate fashion from sustainable AI? Answer yourself those questions. Those questions will tell you if AI is needed. And if you make sure that you follow those steps, you will make sure that AI brings revenue to the business.
Thank you so much, Martin. I knew it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be amazing. So thank you for that. So now my second question really now has turned into question 1A. So question 1A, because the first one was so good, was if an organization wants to genuinely implement like AI rather than merely just purchasing tools, what foundations do they need to have exist first?
That's also a really good question. And the answer is going quite surprising coming from the tech person. It's not about technology. It's about people. Technology is only enabler. People are driving technology and strategy. So I would say there are five key layers to make sure that organization is AI enabled. And I would say strategy. So what do you try to achieve? Why do you try to achieve what you want to achieve? People who are driving decisions, processes that are enabling those decisions to come true, data, which is required for the actions, and technology at the very far end. And everything needs to be governed by governance. And you also need to have a trust in organization. So obviously you need to trust technology, you need to trust people, processes, and be able to experiment.
Wow, that was amazing. That was really good. Thank you so much for illustrating that in such a comprehensive way. So this leads me into my leadership question, because I need a leadership question for you as well, Martin. So that's going to be, what capability becomes more important for leaders as functional boundaries become more interconnected and technology becomes embedded in ordinary business decisions?
Okay, and this is the moment when I'm not happy that I'm the last person because the answer was already given to this question. And I think I made a comment what Michael said. Michael mentioned ability to look across the functions.
Yes.
And also, it's also a very relevant question. And the other day I was creating job description for a new role related to AI. And I was thinking how to create this role, right? Because you don't need a person who is very technical. You don't need a person who is very narrow when it comes to looking at things. So a phrase which came to my mind is enterprise level system thinking with technological fluency. So it's a person who can think about the overall landscape of your tech within the organization, a person who understands if decision across data will make an impact on marketing, supply chain, etc. Person who will be able to understand how decisions of applying AI in supply chain, machine learning, predictive analysis will impact the rest of the organization. And at the same time is a person who understands capabilities and possibilities of technology and AI. So
Wow.
I hope this answer your question.
And then some. I'm actually going to repeat it as your so what. I'm just going to reiterate what you just said. There's no reason for me to synthesize it, but I'm going to say this. One thing you mentioned is there are 5 things that are needed to really neck this down for an organization. And it was strategy first, people, processes, data, technology, all encapsulated in governance. When you mentioned governance, I was like, yes, I love that because it has to come from that high level and come down. But beyond that, for everyone who's in business school right now, everyone who's just graduated, everyone who's looking to pivot, position, elevate, what Martin just said, you just created a role, but more than just the role, it's what the role says. And I'm going to read it back. If I didn't get it right, please correct me. An enterprise level thinking with technology confluency. Holy smokes. That is powerful. That is a mandate to everybody listening to think in those terms. And what everybody has said, whether they meant to or not, is understanding the congruency between different functions and things that aren't your job. You can no longer say, not my job. That was cute years ago. Nowadays, if you're saying, not my job, not my business, not my concern, you're already behind in the race. You're losing. You have to understand the second and third order effects of what you're doing. And that's what everybody is saying. You've got to know what you do and master that, but you've got to be aware of how it impacts other functions in your organization. So thank you, because everybody said it in a different way, but you all talked about cross-functional understanding and integration. So thank you, and thank you. So with that, we're moving on to the next round, and we are tough on time, so I'm going to go through this super fast. But this section is where we really get to talk about interconnectivity and connecting these functions. And this is really important for you to really see, well, how does this all work together? So for my first section, what I'm going to do is, in fact, let me just go into this. From this point, I want to stop treating supply chain, marketing, and technology as separate verticals, because yes, they are, but there's interconnectivity as we've seen today. I'm going to deliberately hand these ideas over from one function to another so you can kind of hear how this information, decision-making, and consequences move across the enterprise and in between functions. And this time, Martin, I'm starting with you. Is that okay? Martin, technology increasingly determines what organizations can know about their customers, but marketing still has to determine what that knowledge actually means. So my question for you is, where should the boundaries sit between technology's ability to identify patterns, predict behavior, and recommend actions, and marketing's responsibility to apply human judgment, context, creativity, and customer understanding? You know, that human element. How does that work together?
Okay, so that's a good question. And again, I'm going to refer what Marta mentioned before. Technology should provide the data. Technology should feed the data, inform, not make decisions. So there's certain reason for that, right? Obviously, especially these days and at different industries, and it's very important to have the human touch, yes, and also ethical judgments and accountability. It's extremely important. You cannot make decisions, and technology cannot make decisions. Like, there is also the cultural aspect. there is also political aspects. So you need to have a strong engine to provide the data, but the data needs to be verified by marketing, and marketing is acting on the data, not technologies making decisions. But this is very important. And I really like what Marta mentioned. You mentioned marketeer is a translator of data, which was really, really interesting. I also made a note about it. So we provide the technology, is providing the data, and marketing needs to act on this data.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to keep my so what super fast, but the connection isn't just technology supporting marketing, like you said. It's machine intelligence meeting human judgment. The human element doesn't go away, i.e., if you understand this, your job will be safe, but you've got to understand how the human element plays into the tech side. And from that, I'm going to go over to, give me 1 second. I have to go to Marta. So now we know, Marta, marketing can understand and even influence demand with extraordinary precision. I mean, you have so much information now, but greater precision in creating demand can actually create greater operational consequences. So with that being said, how should marketing's understanding of customer behavior and anticipated demand flow into supply chain decision-making? How should operational realities flow back to marketing before promises are made to the consumer?
Thank you so much for this very, very important question, because I am allergic to one sentence which I hear a lot. Marketing is connected to media and communication. Marketing is connected to social media only. Marketing is much more than this. Marketing is the strategy of where you put what you do with the product in the market, right? So what we as marketeers need to think of is the product, the packaging, the communication, the price, the retail experience. But most importantly, when we receive the data and we shape the future of the demand, we need to, with business acumen, create simply choices based on the size of price. What are the most effective, efficient solution? Where is the highest ROI? And translate this data to demand, to supply, to see what is feasible in the company or not. So I worry when marketing strategies and marketing departments are filled with marketeers who are not marketeers, but are social media coordinators. Marketeers should be people with business acumen. Marketeers should be people who know how to read P&L, who understand perfectly how the supply works in the company they work for. And it's not only about writing captions for your TikTok or for your Facebook. Very often, however, I hear just that marketing's job is that. Now, the second part of your question. We, as mentioned before, are custodian of the trust. We must not communicate and give promises to our consumers without getting a green light of supply chain. We are eager to excite the consumer, to delight the consumer. Available in 3 months, available everywhere in the country, without knowing what actually is feasible. Guess what? We lose the trust, and probably we lost the consumers for a long time. So 3 things. Marketeers do not work in silos. Marketeers are collaborating with other departments. Marketeers know how to take the data, evaluate them, and with the size of price and the ROI exercise, they go and shape the future to the supply chain. And the other way around, whatever they communicate to the consumer needs to be approved and blessed by what is possible and what is feasible.
Wow. I love that. I love that. And that is actually a great stovepipe. I'm going to dive right into Michael. Michael, it's good to see you. But my question for you is based around this. So technology may recommend one decision. Marketing may see a customer opportunity. Supply chain might identify a capacity or risk constraint. Finance may see cost implication. Each function may be completely correct from its own perspective. But that creates an extremely interesting executive challenge. And my question for you, Michael, when several functions are individually right, but their priorities conflict, how should leaders evaluate the trade-offs and determine what is right for the enterprise as a whole?
Thanks, Chetty. I'll tell you what, that is I was going to say that's a daily task for business leaders, but in fact, I'll break that down. That's hourly or minute by minute, all day, every day. That's the core role of a leader, of course, in any organization, is to balance up all of the pros and cons and make the final decision. Now, the first principle, though, is the enterprise will never be able to optimize every function independently, right? There's got to be kind of winners and losers. The leadership's role there is to understand each option and to understand the second and third order consequences of what each option infers, and then to kind of make decisions around optimizing the total enterprise outcome rather than any of those functions in isolation. And what that involves, of course, Chetty, is the decision makers need to be well informed, have a deep understanding about the various trade-offs, because that's the thing, there's going to be trade-offs. And they need to understand, what does it mean from a perspective of value or risk, or the customer impact themselves, the most important person in the room, of course, but also capital deployment, risk and resilience, and just sticking to the strategic core of the organization as well. So, in practice, the best decision is often not the optimal decision for any one function, of course. It's the decision that creates the best overall enterprise outcome. And that means, as I say, you can't keep everyone, every head of every function happy every minute of the day, unfortunately. But as I say, the enterprise and the customer takes priority.
I love that. This is such a, honestly, I'm loving where this is going, because we're really talking about how to use emerging tech and current tech in a way that is in integrity with the business functions, but also in total alignment with the organizational priorities. And I think it's a mature conversation to have, because a lot of times we can be very blinded by what we do and ignore other things in the organization. But what we're doing today is showing this connectivity between all of these spaces. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the connected enterprise. The challenge isn't necessarily that one function is wrong or another is right. The challenge is that every function can be right from its own perspective, and the enterprise still can make the wrong decision. And that is why integration is a leadership responsibility. Technology does provide the intelligence. Marketing interprets, what you're saying to the customer. However, supply chain confronts operational reality. Leadership reconciles those competing truths. And our students, if you're in this room and you're a student or an emerging leader, that produces an important takeaway, because as you advance in leadership, your responsibility shifts. Early in your career, it may be easy for you to kind of focus on knowing your function, becoming really good at what you do. But as you become more senior, you are increasingly rewarded for understanding the enterprise. So my so what for all of this is you must be able to look horizontally, as was said earlier, across functions, understanding the dependencies and the consequences, and so you can make decisions to optimize the whole rather than simply your tiny piece of it. Or it may seem big to you, but when you look at the whole enterprise, it may not be as big as you think. And that can be humbling sometimes, but you've got to be aware of that, of the magnitude of what you do and how it impacts the whole. So you've got to adopt a mindset of a general manager, someone that you can kind of be aware of that second, as you said, Michael, second and third order effects of your decisions and the impact on the whole enterprise. And what it means, that is exactly what it means to lead in a connected enterprise. That is my 2 cents on that. I've drawn my line in the sand, and you can jump on board or you can't, but you've heard from 3 experts who have kind of said the exact same thing. And out of respect for time, I'm moving on to the lightning round, and it is going to be super quick. So the lightning round, I'm going to ask each person 3 questions. 2 are separate, and 1 is going to be the same question for everybody. So you can hear 1 question from 3 different perspectives. So my first question is going to be super fast, a few seconds on each, maybe 30 seconds per question, but here we go. Myth, risk, or reality? That's it. So Martha, you're first. And my question for you is, my statement is this, and you tell me if it's a myth, a risk, or reality. More consumer data always leads to better marketing. Martha, what say you?
I think that the audience should respond on my behalf. An absolute myth.
Wonderful. All right, I'm going right on to the second question. And it's going to be, AI will make functional expertise less important.
Again, absolute myth. We will have to replace the less important with more important than ever. We
All
are
right.
interconnected now more than ever.
Wonderful. And I'm going to save the last question for the end. I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to go on to
Perfect.
Michael right now. So
Oof,
get ready
so
for
I'm
I have a third
done
question.
for
It's
now.
coming though. Michael, my next set of questions are for you. The fully autonomous supply chain is inevitable. Is that a myth, risk, or reality?
I think, Chetty, that's partially reality. I'll tell you why. We'll see increasingly a lot more use around autonomous supply chain when it comes to replenishment and inventory allocation and such. Wherever those parts are where the data is strong and decision rules are very, very clear, and concepts such as even the physical internet point to that direction as well. But I don't think we'll ever be able to be too autonomous around strategy or major risk trade-offs, customer decisions, and particularly around ethics decisions, and even the governance that even Marcin spoke about before.
Beautiful. And my second question, myth, risk, or reality? The biggest barrier to AI transformation is not technology, it's leadership. What say you?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Technology is increasingly available, very readily available. But the real barriers are organizational, of course, right? It's around data quality. It's around maturity of processes and maturity of people, the decision rights, and very importantly there around whether, and I'm saying this because I'm going through it right now, whether people are actually prepared to change in the workplace as well. Change is inevitable, and it has to be managed constantly. And that's a leadership responsibility.
Thank you so much. Marcin, on to you. And my questions for you are, AI implementation and adoption always leads to a competitive advantage. Is that, for you, is that a myth, risk, or reality?
It's a myth. It's a myth. As we spoke before, if you don't know what you're trying to do, how do you know you're even going to bring competitive advantage? I mean, if you say successful and with purpose AI implementation and adoption, yes, this is going to give you competitive advantage. But just AI implementation, no, myth.
Perfect. Thank you. My second question for you, myth, risk, or reality? Try saying that 3 times fast. Myth, risk, or reality is going to be this. AI will eliminate more management jobs than frontline jobs.
I would say it's a myth. We spoke about connected world. We spoke about understanding different functions, role, and implication on decision across the organization. Some jobs are going to be replaced. Sorry, some jobs are going to be not eliminated but replaced. Yeah, it's a myth.
Wonderful. Thank you. And since I have you on the horn, I'm going to go in my final question. This is the question for everyone. So be prepared and listen. This is the same question you're going to get. So Marcin, companies that do not adopt AI quickly will be left behind. Are we talking myth, risk, or reality?
That's a tough one. I would say reality to some extent. The companies who will not learn AI and experiment with AI are going to be left behind.
Got it. Got it. And Michael, you're next. I'm not throwing everyone. Everyone's confused. Who's next? Who's next? I'm doing it on purpose. But Michael, you're next. And it's going to be myth, risk, or reality. Again, companies that do not adopt AI quickly will be left behind. What say you?
Yeah, look, I agree with Marcin for sure. I think it is reality, but to a certain degree. You used the word quickly, for example, and I'd be kind of thinking, well, whilst organizations that do ignore AI altogether are definitely going to fall behind, they're simply not going to be competitive. But by the same token, rushing into AI without understanding your approach, without the right data and maturity and the right business case, I think would be just as damaging as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Marta, same question. It's going to be myth, risk, or reality. Do you need me to say the question again, or you got it?
No, I got it. And I really wanted to be original, but I fully agree with the gentleman. From the marketing perspective, it is reality with the asterisks, providing that you have your AI marketing strategy ready. You know what you will do with AI, where you want to go with it, then if you don't implement it, of course, you're going to be left behind. So yes, reality with providing that you know what you're doing and where you're going.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Now, that was our lightning round. It went super fast, and I'm glad. Thank you for your insights and your information. It was really good. It was super rich. But at this time, we have an opportunity to speak to those that really the most important people in the room, and that's you, the audience. If you're out there and you have a question, at this time, some of you may have submitted questions already, but I'm actually going to look for some questions, and I'm going to give them to the panel so they can go through and answer the questions that seem relevant to them. Is that okay? So I have my first question that I see here. Teresa Emitobaye. It looks like the question is for you, Martin. You identified a lack of ownership as one of the challenges surrounding AI, and you suggested giving AI real ownership and creating governance around it. What would that look like in practice? And then the second part of that is the internal organization governance, like clearly assigning responsibility and accountability, sufficient? Or do we also need harmonized regulatory frameworks from international bodies, particularly when AI operates across global supply chains? There's more, but I'm going to give you that. If not, it's a lot more and you'll be like super confusing. Great question, though.
Thanks, Teresa, for the question. It's a very complex and long question. When it comes to real ownership, right? So ownership needs to be broken down into functional and technology ownership. So again, going back to initial structure, what I mentioned, AI should be brought in to fix a challenge. It's usually a business challenge, or it can be also IT challenge, but the business should be responsible for owning it from the business perspective, right? So this is kind of accountability, and IT supposed to be responsible for the governance around data privacy, about technology, code owning, etc., etc. So again, you kind of break down your AI solution into departments and the purpose why it was created, and you make sure you kind of build ownership around it. I hope this answered the first part of your question. When it comes to the second part of the question, how would that look like in practice? And you're asking about internal organization governance. Yes, the internal organization governance is good enough as long as organization is mature when it comes to AI. And this is the key. This is the key thing. And again, I just give you an example how we do that in my organization. So knowing that AI is getting popular, knowing that our stakeholders are creating products, we are running at risk of data leakage, we are running at risk of being hacked, data exposure, etc., etc. We've built processes. We've built SOP when it comes to building products, when it comes to using AI. We educate, we teach, we restrict, and make sure this is followed. Also, when it comes to the governance, it's not governed by one person. So you have governance when it comes to infrastructure, you have governance when it comes to data, you have governance when it comes to security, you have governance when it comes to business functions. So ideally it needs to be built with many different eyes looking at it. And it's a bit challenging because I don't think such frameworks are available at the moment. It's still quite new. And also the framework itself and the governance will be different for different sizes of organizations. So just to sum it up, I would say internal governance is good enough as long as your organization is mature. And when it comes to ownership, ownership is going to be business, technology, and within technology, as I mentioned, there'll be security, data, etc., etc.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm looking on multiple screens, but if I have, my next question is from Gia Sadarf Guy, and this question is for Marta. If AI becomes better at predicting what consumers will want, than consumers are themselves, how do we distinguish between marketing that discovers existing demand and marketing that actually manufactures that demand?
I think it won't happen because I think that the emotions and system 95% of our intuition and emotions and behavioral economics are still playing a big role. So I think that we as marketeers need to still provide as much information as mentioned to cover the functional benefit, but also the emotional benefit and the memory trigger. And then based on this, make a decision of what campaign and where the campaign is speaking to the consumer in the best way.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm looking at some other questions. I noticed they're in two different places. They're in the Q&A section, but they're also in the comment section. So give me 1 second because I'm trying to find the question right now. Give me 1 second. This question is from Michael and it is from Frida. Looks like they've compiled some of the questions. Thank you for doing that, Frida. You are awesome. So this question is for you, Michael. And it says, please suggest some commonly used AI tools and its functional areas.
Oh gosh, Jody, there's there's heaps and heaps of them. My deployment, I'll be honest with you as an operator, my deployment of AI is still even in its early days.
Yes.
My expectation of what I'm going to use it for is around deployment of transport, such as capacity utilization, routing of trucks, timing, and those types of things. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Similarly, operations when it comes to warehouses, distribution centers, fulfillment centers, and such. Again, one of the largest operating costs of any facility is typically manpower, believe it or not. So managing even minor efficiencies around that, around utilization of manpower, can actually make significant commercial gains and also fulfillment gains as well. And then the third big silo that I continuously look at is around inventory deployment, particularly around forecasting, and then being able to forward deploy inventory closer to where the customer the demand is actually going to be incurred. Now, we're in the very, very early stages in all of those particular facets. And I'll tell you why, because we're still gathering data. As we keep saying, data is like, it's like gold. It's like the new oil, guys, in industry. But one has to be very, very careful with, as we say, how we interpret data and how we actually deploy that data.
Wonderful.
I think it's a very vague answer, and I apologize for that. But as I say, in these very, very early days, what excites me the most is what we don't know yet about how we're actually going to use AI when it really starts getting some momentum up.
It's funny, Michael, you say that was vague, but I actually would have answered it in the same way, because instead of giving somebody a tool in this wild west gold rush phase, it's good to know the function of the tool and the purpose of the tool more than the specific tool or suite itself. I think it was the best way to answer the question, because some things are here today and gone tomorrow. There's some AI tools that I use personally that went away for a few days because the company that bought them then sold them again. So I lost my data for a few days and it's now a new company with the same name. Bizarre. But we're in that kind of a gold rush, new era, new frontier when it comes to AI. So a lot of things, giving somebody a tool may not be the best answer. So I actually appreciate the way you answered that. And that question was by Preeta. So Preeta, thank you so much for that question. Preeta Nagarajan, thank you so much. I didn't have your name at first, but I've got it now. So thank you for that question. My next question is going to be this. And I'm not sure who this one is from. This might be Preeta's question as well. That data overload will make marketers more, I think, you know what? We already answered that question. I'm going to move on because that question has somewhat been answered already.
Can I just answer actually, Chedi, if you don't mind, because I love
yes,
her
please.
question. Thank you, Preeta, for that. And I'll be very, very quick because you are 100% right. We are not saying no to the amount of data, and data has to be is moving us from reactive marketing to predicting marketing in the future. However, it's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing when to stop and make the decision. Because by analyzing continuously the data, our consumers won't be delighted. Our strategies won't be implemented. So there's only one suggestion I always give for people I work with. Know exactly your goal, then analyze the data relevant to this goal and set the time, the deadline for decision. So yes, more data can give you more idea for the future, but you have to set the deadline when to make a decision, and then obviously revisit your marketing strategy every 6 months, every 1 year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Manachin, the next question is going to be for you. And that question comes from Sukat Ali. And his question was really simple, but a good one. What are the risks of depending too much on artificial intelligence?
Failure of the business, company going bankrupt. Like you can fail completely.
Wow.
And again, if your data is wrong, you're going to make wrong decisions. Simple as it is.
Wow.
Going back to what Marta mentioned, what Michael mentioned, if your sales data is limited or your product's out of stock, you're going to use incorrect data to predict your demand and forecast for your products, for your inventory. If you have wrong data, you'll be at risk of data hallucination. You have complete wrong answers. You can be at risk of ethical issues, racism issues. There's this number of different reasons and risks. So it's very important to be able to, first of all, I mean, going back to governance, have good data in place, but also have a human checking the data. You need to start small and scale up. If you start relying on the AI straight away, you will fail. You will fail badly.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now, that looks like a conclusion on the questions that I see. I'm sure there are more, and I'm totally convinced you have more questions. It may take a little time for you to watch the video again, process it, or if you're watching it as a recording, please do take the time to go to the link and get our LinkedIn pages, connect with us, ask us those questions, or go to Lincoln University and ask them the questions and they can provide them to us as well. The information is here, the resources are here. We're here to serve you, and we're here to watch you excel and exceed whatever it is you're trying to do, whether you are in industry right now or you are working to get that degree or that certification to move up and advance. We are here for you. And we have one segment left for us, and then the university will close us out. And I'm going to go into this segment, and it's really just the closing thought. We've gone over a lot of information today, and I don't expect you all to keep all of it in your head. It was a lot of information. You got a fire hose today, but it was a fire hose of good information. Please take the time to watch a recording, review your notes, take away some of the takeaways, some of the so whats, and use these things in your business. This is extremely important. And so what I want to do is close this panel with two very practical prompts. And I'm going to ask each of you to be very concise, but everyone gets the final word. And if we're to have a final word, what I want to do is ask one question with two parts. It's two questions, but they're really interrelated. Is that okay? Perfect. So as we close out with the final round of this event, I wanted to go with this one sentence from each of you, and I want you to complete this thought. And Michael, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to go in the original order this time since we're closing out. And it's going to go like this. The leaders who will thrive in the connected enterprise will be the ones who, please fill in the blank.
Thanks, Jedi. Well, look, we've already discussed it's those leaders who understand the enterprise horizontally and the consequences of their actions. But I'll take it up a notch as well, and I'll add one more to it as well, which are leaders who can turn all of this information into actual coordinated physical action.
Ooh, well, I like that. Awesome. Thank you. And the second part of that question is going to be the one thing you should actually do in the next 30 days to begin developing that skill is?
Good question. What we should do in the next 30 days, I would be thinking, is to Marcin spoke about this earlier, is to start small. I would recommend, pick one important decision, right? Map out what information feeds that decision, what functions influence, what are the dependencies. Ask what would improve the speed and quality of that decision. That would be the first kind of segue into automating one thing in a small way.
Wonderful. Love those answers. And now I'm going to go right into Martin. This is for you. Same questions, going to ask it again for your insight. The leaders who will thrive in the connected enterprise will be the ones who, please fill in the blank, Martin. You on mute, sir?
Sorry. Who can see holistic impact of their decision on organization.
Wow, that was potent. I love that. I hope you guys know you are getting gold nuggets right now, and I hope you're collecting these gems and are using them for later. This is good stuff. And the second part of that is going to be this, Martin. The one thing you would actually do in the next 30 days to begin developing it is what?
Go and experiment with AI.
Oof, okay, awesome. And closing out for this segment, I'm going to go to you, Marta, and my questions are the same. The leaders who will thrive in the connected enterprise will be the ones who, please fill in the blank.
The ones who translate the data into the actionable steps and actionable outcomes. So very similar to Michael's, fully agree with him.
Wonderful. And the second part of that question is going to be the one thing you would actually do in the next 30 days to begin developing it is?
Know your box. Before you go outside of the box, make sure that you know the fundamentals on whatever you're doing. So check what's inside the box and if you are on top of it.
I absolutely love that. I hope you guys understand the quality and the richness of the information and the insights and the advice you've been given. The reason we have put that 30-day question in there is because this is something that is actionable. You can turn that 30-day thing into a 3-day thing. What are you going to do in the next 30 hours? 3 days. What are you going to execute on right now so you can be more proficient in this new world that you're going to be walking into? And you've been given some significant tools from different functions in different areas of a business to see how this all works. Let's say we didn't talk about your function. We didn't talk about finance maybe or legal, but I guarantee you, wherever you work, you can see how this can impact and enhance your impact at work. So now I'm going to go into another section. This is just for me to close out. As I've listened to all three of you, 4 things have stood out to me. And it's going to be connect, question, experiment, and lead. And I'm going to go into that. Connect. Understand how marketing, technology, operations, supply chain, and customer experience all interact. Find those threads that put them all together. Find out how what you do impacts another silo, another function, another vertical, and think horizontally. Question. Don't adopt technology because everyone else is doing it. Shiny object system will make your business, shiny object syndrome will make your business crash and burn. Let's avoid that. But how about we start with the business problem and the desired value? And you've heard that multiple times today. The next thing is experiment. And you've heard this as well. Start small, test, measure, learn, and scale what creates value and avoid what doesn't. Because let's be real, in your business, every action you take is a hypothesis until you prove it true or false. So keep with the iterative process of experimenting and learning and adopting what works and discarding what doesn't for the promotion of the business, for the life of the business, for the viability and competitive advantage of your business or your business department, your business unit or your department or your organization, whatever it may be, whatever you're in charge of, wherever you work, you can use this to enhance and grow and stay at the tip of the spear instead of being on the trailing edge. Another one is going to be lead. Technology does not eliminate the need for leadership. It increases the need for judgment, alignment, communication, and accountability. Remember this, the connected enterprise is not simply an enterprise with more technology. It is an enterprise in which information, functions, decisions, and people work together for more intelligently. That means the opportunity ahead is not reserved just for technologists and technocrats. It's available to the marketers, the operators, the supply chain professionals, the entrepreneurs, the students, and the leaders who learn disciplines that organizations once treated separately. Those who can integrate these things fastest will win. And I urge those winners to be the people that are listening to this in this room or on a recording. And at this time, I want to thank you, our panelists, Marcin, Marta, Michael, and Raiza for putting this together. Thank you so much for sharing both the opportunities and the realities behind this transformation. And thank you to everyone for joining us. At this time, I'm going to hand this session over back to this amazing university. Raiza, I'm giving the floor to you. Thank you so much for your time, and everybody stay amazing and keep growing.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you for sharing all the valuable insights. It was indeed a very good session. I have been a participant throughout the ones, so the questions which were asked to all the panel members, Marcin, Martha, and Ms. Michael, it really went well. And I hope all the audiences who have listened to us, it is a great takeaway for the weekend and for rest of your career journey. We promise we'll keep coming back. In case you want to connect to the speakers, as Cherry announced, you can scan the QR code and you can get connected to all of them who were available in the panel list. Moving on to the next, we would request a short Google review. You can scan the QR codes. If you want to access more information about our social media, you can scan the Instagram QR code. Google review will help us to get better each time we come up with such interesting panelists and the panel members and the topic. So please send us a review, and we will be here to help you out with newer set of information. This is a slight intro about LUBM, which I have already introduced in my previous slides. Moving on to the next, where we have propelled almost 6,000 plus professional learners. We have certain courses available within us. Those of you already are students, you have progressive pathways available, with the doctorate in business administration being introduced in the coming quarter. And September intake, we are introducing 3 new specializations with artificial intelligence and business analytics, global logistics and supply chain, and we have digital marketing. So all the session that you gained today, all the insights that you have been enabled today, you will be getting the information through MBA with specializations available. Moving on to the next, I would sincerely say thank you once again to all the panel members, and we'll see you very soon with another set of panelists with another round of informative information here with us. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Mr. Michael. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Marchand. Yes, we don't see any further questions, so I think we can wind up this session. Thanks for keeping it on time, Cherry, always.
Wonderful. Guys did great. This was really good. I want to go back and watch it. There were times when I forgot that I was moderating and was taking notes and was like, wait. I'm supposed to be doing something else right now. What am I supposed to be doing right now? Oh, that's right, speaking. So it was really good because I got caught up in being a note taker instead of being a moderator. So thank you so much. This was really good. And hopefully you got to showcase the things you wanted to showcase. I was really trying to do that. So hopefully that helped. But thank you for allowing me to moderate for you and being that person that helps and asks the questions that you wanted asked. And I hope it went well. If there's anything I could have done better, please let me know. I have no ego here. So like I said before, if you just tell me so I can get better. I want to get better so I can serve people better. So if there's anything you want me to fix or correct, let me know that. And I hope we can work together in the future in some way, shape, or form. And
Well,
please
Cherry,
connect
you
with
were
me
the
on
best.
LinkedIn.
Yes,
Oh,
surely.
I see you are awesome.
It was great
Your whole
connecting
team is
with
amazing.
all of you.
Thank you so much. It was really, really great. I enjoy the session tremendously. What I wanted to add, particularly what was strong for me, is that without really rehearsing, we spoke the same language and we gave the same points. We were aligned, and I think that the audience really appreciate this energy.
Yes.
Really, we walk the talk. We are connected enterprise. I must confess, I did not go through Marcin's or Michael's content before. So we were speaking truly about our expertise, and it was one united front and really truly speaking the same language. And I think that this was the success of tonight.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
True.
Thank you so much. Hopefully nobody felt like they were robbed for time. Did everyone feel like they had the time they needed? I was trying. I was trying to have my stopwatch going.
I think we've done quite well with time, actually.
Yeah, congratulations, Chetty. You've your timekeeping was absolutely impeccable. So,
Yes,
thanks
exactly.
for that. And I must say, I feel I learned more from Marta and Marcin than I actually contributed tonight. So, thanks to you two guys as well. Really brilliant work.
I'm telling you, just different. I don't think people really get the opportunity to hear things from different functions at one time. It's very rare that you see that, and to see the synergy in there and the things that you were saying that I'm like, didn't I write that already? And it was somebody else that said it. I was like, this, you can't make this stuff up. But I think that is the rich, like you said, Mark, this is very rich because it confirmed what was being said. I don't think it invalidated anyone's profession. I hope no one feels like, well, I'm just a technologist, bro. This doesn't apply to me. I think everyone says, wow, I have a responsibility or a mandate to do better and to align and to learn more about my organization. If I was in business school, if that's one lesson that people should come out of it with, it's that. It's that. I'll tell you, when I went to business school, one of the most important classes I had, which I didn't know, was called general management. I'm like, I've been managing all my life. Don't need this class. General management. What is this, McDonald's? Total ignorance. And then when I realized what I was like, this course has consolidated everything else I've learned in this school and put it together. And it made me think horizontally, and it made me think about other things and how to bring it all together. And I said, this one class has elevated my leadership because it really made me understand how everybody's function and priorities are mine as well. And I must understand how they all work together. Totally elevate my leadership. I recommend it to every business school student, take a general management course that does just that. Because guess what? If you want to be in the C-suite, you've got to think in those terms. So I think it was a cheat code, and all of you said it. All of you think bigger than what you do. And I think that bodes well for all of you. And I wish you all the biggest and greatest success in everything you do. It shows, I mean, you guys are killing it. You guys are the tip of the spear, the vanguards, and grazie. Thank you. And I'm still under time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Is there anything you need from us, Raiza?
As of now, no, that's all for tonight. I would not like to keep others waiting any longer. And thank you again for being on time and keeping the stopwatch always active, and so that we don't go overboard.
No worries, no worries. I think it's a big thing for me. I need to relax on that, but it's my thing. I think it's the Marine in me when time is like important. But thank you.
Indeed.
So, Rabia, thank you for keeping us on point and keeping us honest. And I do appreciate, because I initially said no because of the surgery, and I didn't think I could do it. So thank you for helping me to promote myself getting better, Rabia, because I said no, but I can't say no to Rabia. You can't say no to her. You can't. You can say no, but you can't do no. So I was like, okay, I'll try. And it helped me to get better a lot quicker, I think, because I had a goal of making sure that I could sit here without neck braces on and, everything else. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All right.
you. Good
Thank
night.
you,
And I'm going
guys.
to take off
Please
these
take care,
adult
Chetty.
clothes and put on
Great
some weekend
weekend.
clothes.
Yeah, surely.
All right. I'll see you guys.
Thanks, guys.